The world is saved. The living room's dark, save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
Hey, George.
I hate you so goddamn much right now.
Is it because I made you wait so long to play this amazing Zelda game? We played Zelda. Zelda.
I hate everything you love. There's no excuse for this. It's like it's just kind of like, oh man, like I'm really excited to go to this like nice restaurant. It's like, instead of a nice restaurant, we're going to an alley where they take your kidneys. It's like a restaurant in that you go someplace to sit down. But no, this is a Zelda game in name only. This is the Simon's Quest of Zelda games. This is the Mario 2 of Zelda games, and that actually does a huge disservice to Mario 2 and Simon's Quest.
This is, what this is? This is the level 2 of Battletoads of Zelda games. It's just unforgiving and thankless and unfun.
I would say actually that is the best analogy that anybody who's thinking about playing this game is like, imagine if they took the second level of Battletoads and stretched it out over an entire game.
Yeah.
And you don't have an older brother that can beat it.
No. Just 15 hours of the brain scooter level.
No, this was like the gaming equivalent of me running full force into a brick wall, getting up, doing it 3 or 4 more times, and then like my body begging me to stop, and me being like, nah, man, no, you got to put on a good podcast. So gear up.
This is where some of that Patreon money is got to go, is right into therapy. Just right, just directly from the pockets of listeners right into the pocket of a therapist.
Yes. Yeah. No, actually, I'm really glad that honestly that you did this to us as opposed to a Patreon subscriber, because I think I might be like, we need to shut down this Patreon account. This is bad.
Yeah. Game over. The listeners hate us. We're not.
Yep. Yeah. And so for anybody listening, this will be our last episode because we're both emotionally shattered as human beings.
Yeah, totally dead, unfeeling husks now. So I didn't actually think to ask you before I sentenced you to this kind of like death march, but like what are your memories of playing Zelda 2 as a kid? Do you have any?
Honestly, I know I played this game like once, I obviously, I played the ever-loving heck out of good Zelda games, including Zelda, the Zelda.
Yeah.
Like I played that for hours and hours and hours and hours. And this one, I feel like I played once and then just recognized it as a vastly inferior game and then just immediately dumped back into normal Zelda. I could not tell you where or when or how. I think I took all of those memories and I put them in a box, and I put that box way back in the corner of my mind. And then 20 years later, like walked up and was like, "Oh, hey, what's in this box?"
Yeah. And then
how about you?
Then it's Pandora's box, and you're like, "Oh God."
No, that's not true, because at least hope was in Pandora's box.
No, don't you know the spin on that though? That
absolutely do.
Hope is the greatest evil of all.
It is. But I would rather take the evil of hope than play this.
Yeah, so I'm coming from kind of a similar place in that I can't pin down where I know I didn't have this game, so I definitely played it at a friend's house, but my memories of it are kind of an indifferent, like, wow, this is hard, I'm going to play something else, but not having like the kind of, bile choking, teeth grinding, controller crushing, because I'm sure that as a kid I was like, wow, this is hard, I'm going to play something else. But because we're like under the gun, it's like, wow, this is hard.
And I have to keep playing it. And especially when you're hitting that wall and you're just kind of like, is it me? Like and then you go online and people are like, nah, man, this is bad. And it's like, okay, good. It's not me. But I still want to get like a good experience. So maybe if I just hurl time at the problem and no.
Yeah. No, it's there's are you familiar with the concept of the mythical man month?
No, what's that?
So the Mythical Man Month, and I'm gonna TLDR this and probably butcher it in the translation, but it's essentially if you already have like 10 software engineers working on a project and you're behind schedule, the surefire way to completely fall off the rails is to put more people on it, because now they have to be skilled up and they have to be trained up and everything. This is kind of like that. It's kind of like halfway between the Mythical Man Month and throwing good money after bad, because as you continue to play, you get more and more frustrated, and you're putting more and more pressure on yourself to keep playing because you want to like get good notes and see how far you can get and you know, be a good podcaster, gone darn it. And but like it's not even diminishing returns. It's like you start to get into negative returns where you would be better served to just go find one of those charity streams where people beat games really fast for money, donate some money to cancer research, and just watch someone else play it.
Yeah. I would have much rather thrown money at this problem to make it go away. Because
Yeah.
But you know, to be fair, credit where credit's due. Let's start at the top. Visuals.
So I have a weird note for this because the visuals themselves aren't actually bad. I mean, they're Nintendo graphics, but they're not bad. They're just really dated. But because I have built up this mythology in my mind about how horrible this game is, and I super didn't enjoy it on this playthrough, I have like a visceral reaction because every other Zelda game is either like, I forget what you call it. Is it isomorphic? Like not quite top down. It's like the angle on. Yeah. So every other Zelda game is either that angle or it's in 3D where you have like more or less a free spinning camera.
Right.
So this is the only time, and I'm not counting the CDI games; those don't count. But like, this is
not
the
games.
They're not. God, they're super not. This is the only time that I can think of where you see this like weird profile of Link.
Yeah.
So whenever I see the Zelda 2 sprite of Link, I'm just like,
Yeah. No, I mean, because it's almost Pavlovian, because like when you see that, you just know that you're about to get hit by something awful.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to not, you know, flinch, you know, and like twitch a little bit when you see it. You're like, oh God, something bad's about to happen. It is literally the harbinger of bad times.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I'd say that the actual sprite of Link, I think, was acceptable. The hitbox is the Diaries of a Madman, but we'll get into that in mechanics. But the actual visual of Link is fine, and some of the enemies are okay. Like the spiders, I thought looked like spiders.
Like the Iron Knuckle or whatever. Like he looks cool.
Yeah, he looks kind of cool. Some of what I don't know what those weird fox dudes were that come bounding about at you at the first castle.
Oh yeah, you know what? I think they're wearing like it's almost like an Anubis helmet. Like I don't think that's what they look like. I think they have like a helmet on, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, like I felt like all of the enemy sprites were they were varied. And again, like I can't. It's so difficult to disintegrate my truly deep loathing for this game from an accurate assessment. But I mean, honestly, I'd say that the visuals were, you know, as far as like visuals for visual sake, they were fine. You know, like I said, most of the bad guys I could tell like what they were, and I will give them this one compliment, I guess. Is that enemies that I was skilled enough to actually get to did visually scale to the difficulty of the enemy, you know, which is something I'm not sure that we've really touched on so far. But like little green blobby dudes, those were super easy to beat.
Oh,
and like,
scarier enemy, harder enemy.
Correct.
Oh,
yeah. So like when I saw the big, he looked just like the demon. I think it's a Caco demon in Doom, right? Doom 2.
Mm-hmm,
you know, the little pink demon, right? It's that. I mean, it's that guy. He's throwing juggling equipment at you for whatever reason.
Yeah, they're they almost look like the hammers in like track and field events, you know, because like you have like the small handle and then the chain and then the ball on the end, and it's like I don't totally know why he has a seemingly infinite number of those. And you know what? He moves exactly like the crappy enemy in Castlevania that throws like
The
ribs at
skeleton.
you. Yeah, exact
Yeah.
same kind of terrible thing. Yep.
No, that's true. But all I could think about was the Sledgehammer brothers from Mario 3 and how much I'd
Mm.
rather be playing Mario 3.
Yeah. Like, wow, this enemy reminds me of anything else I'd rather be doing.
And that actually leads into one of my notes, which is at least the first castle did have a very Super Mario Brothers 3 vibe to me, in that like the color scheme was about the same. The kind of like the weird fade along some of the brickwork was about the same. One of the things though that they did do in Parappa, is that right? Palace?
Sure. Yes. Parappa the Rappa Palace.
Parappa the Rappa Palace, right? Was I thought they did a poor job conveying when environmental hazards existed, you know?
Yeah.
Because like one of the main thing I can point to is there's one point where you're jumping around and there's like a clear gargoyle head like posted down a hallway, like you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, that thing's obviously going to shoot fireballs or some sort of stupidity at me, and it didn't. It just sat there, and I was like, was that an intentional misdirection? Because
Because later they do. Sometimes.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's fine. I mean, it's fine, but this isn't a horror game. If it was a horror game and like sometimes things hurt you and sometimes they don't, I'd be like, like what is it, Prey, where like the mimics actually mimic things in the room, so you have to look for things that are duplicated, like, but it's never the same thing. Like that's supposed to like seed uncertainty or fear.
Yeah.
This is not that.
No.
I
So
don't think anybody knows what this is.
so one of the things that actually really bothered me about the graphics, and this is, it's kind of a mechanical thing, but I think it's important to answer the question of how well do the graphics serve gameplay, is exactly what you said, which is the hitbox is a hot mess. I mean,
Yes.
it is broken beyond repair. So you get the ability at some point to like attack down, where you can like jump and like point your sword down, very much like how he does it in Smash Brothers.
Mhm.
And unless I just couldn't puzzle out the controls, I didn't, get far enough to unlock that ability. So there were times where I would be jumping like over a chasm or something, and there'd be like one of those little blob guys that would like do the long low jump and end up like right where I was going to be.
Sure.
And
yeah.
reflexively, I would just attack and sometimes kill them and take no damage. And it's like, but my entire sprite passed through his entire sprite. Like my entire lower body entered this jelly thing, and yet somehow it died and I took no damage. And then there'd be other times, like against the skeleton guys with the shields or the iron knuckles, which, I mean, I'll admit, like they were rocking my stuff a lot more than I'm proud to admit, but I can see where the satisfaction in beating that kind of an enemy comes from, because you have to like, it has the long like low swing, which gives you enough time to like, drop and hold your shield up. So like it's an achievable goal, but they're frustrating as hell to fight. And yet I didn't always know what was happening, because sometimes I would like feel like I was in the way with my shield and then get stabbed in the face. And then other times I was like, my sword just passed all the way through his face, and yet it made the shield noise. So
Yeah.
what is happening here? And it's just like there's this constant reminder that these should be achievable goals if they were just giving you the information you needed.
Yeah, no, especially like with your shooting sword, because the skeleton dudes, when you shoot your sword at them, it doesn't low.
It does not. Yeah, it does not seem to affect them.
Right. So you actually have to physically hit them with your sword, which is dumb. I mean, that's a wild inconsistency with the way the game works, So I'm like, why? Like,
well, and the shooty sword already does less damage, so it's like just make it do virtually no damage. So if I want to stand away like a coward and throw the shooty sword a million times, I can, but I'm incentivized to get in close and stab him with my real sword. But instead, they just make it do no damage.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, to me, the shooty sword is like in most Zeldas, is the whole point is that it's hard to get, and actually I think it's a brilliant mechanic, and this definitely strays into the mechanics. But in other Zelda games, it's a great mechanic because it's difficult to get, but you can kind of always get it, because you just need to be at full health, right?
Yeah, okay. So I'm forgetting. Don't you also start with it in Zelda 1? I think it wasn't
Yeah.
until later that it became an end game thing.
No, yeah, in Zelda, yeah, in definitely Zelda 1 and apparently in Zelda 2. And I thought in Link to the Past.
No.
Um
No, in
hmm.
Link to the Past, you absolutely earn that later on.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Hmm. Anyways, but yeah, definitely in Zelda the Zelda, right? You fire it, and it's a great mechanic because it's difficult to get and then maintain, but it's always kind of like around, you
Yeah.
know. So like if you get to full health, then all of a sudden you're like, I can't take a hit, I can't take a hit, I can't take a hit, which is a great mechanic because then when you're at full health, normally you would be the most relaxed because you're like, I can take 50 hits before I die. I'm nowhere near death. But that's actually you're more unnerved when you're at full health because you're one hit away from losing this awesome advantage. You
Right.
know? And then they just poop all over it in this game because it doesn't do consistent damage, and sometimes it hurts things and sometimes it doesn't. And then once you lose it, getting health is a nightmare. It's just a mess. But we're diverging from visuals. Visuals in service of gameplay. So yeah, the hitbox is a blanket nightmare from which there is no escape. Also, I did not feel that the enemies did a good. First of all, okay, so there's mana in this game.
Yeah.
So,
well,
and
I mean, a lot of them have a magic meter of some kind.
they do. So I mean, I'm fine with that in and of itself as a mechanic. The way they used it, in my opinion, was stupid. But there are some bad guys that like drain your mana, right?
Yeah, there's also a couple that drain your experience, which is
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, there was absolutely no strong visual to correlate those two things. And honestly, I can't speak off the top of my head whether or not other Zeldas did a great job of this. I'm confident that Ocarina of Time did because the enemies that drain your mana, if memory serves, and I'll look this up and you'll see my research in the show notes. They like kind of make you flash like blue and like kind of like be on fire a little bit. You know?
there's some kind of communication that the thing you expected is different this time.
Yeah, just enough to make you be like, whoa, what was that? And then you kind of like look around and you're like, oh God, I just lost a third of my mana. But no, I got through the area that had the thing that drains your mana like 2 or 3 times before I was like, why? I haven't used any spells. Why is my mana always drained? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's because these things are draining it. But that's silly. It would take 2 seconds for them to change the hit animation to just a different color.
Yeah, you could just flash a different color. It could make the magic noise. There's already, and this is how they did it in Zelda 3. When an enemy hits you that does magic damage, it makes a different noise than when you take physical damage. Like these are not complicated, like, revolutions in gaming. This is like conveying basic information.
And that's the thing, is that we know that games around this time could do things like that, because we've said in a number of different episodes, like how, especially, and to be fair, this is SNES era, so it's not.
No, NES. That's SNES. NES.
What?
NES.
No. What I'm about to reference is.
Got it. Yeah. Go on.
Is like with some of the bullet hell games that we've played, how we've said how they do a great job condensely conveying information through the visuals,
Mm-hmm.
And this does none of that. It conveys basically no information through the visuals, like other than you can tell when you get hit, but you don't really know how much damage you've taken. You don't know whether or not you've taken magic damage or you've taken real damage. You just don't know any of this sort of information. All you've got is just, oh, I got hit, and then you have to stop looking at your dude and look up.
Yeah, way up there.
Yeah, to see how much damage he took, and that was a mess. It was stupid. It was dumb.
Well, and the other thing about the visuals is I can't think of any other game we've played, or maybe that I've ever played, that was quite this visually glitchy. So I'm going to complain about random encounters later, but in the random encounters, there's a lot of enemies just coming from nowhere because that's like how the random encounters function. And the like pigmen, the soldiers that have like the spears,
Yeah.
So there's like the up high spears and like the down low spears or whatever. But if you happen to catch one of them as he was entering the screen and you are walking in such a way that it's making the screen scroll, he appears to be coming from all directions at all times. And it's like he's a fourth dimensional eldritch horror. And there's and it's like, what do I do? Do I turn around and fight him? Is this a different enemy that's coming from the front? Because sometimes it is a different enemy. So your like enemy A is like glitched in half, and then enemy B emerges from half of enemy A, which is its own kind of terrifying monster, because you're like, oh god, they're spawning. And it's just like it's confusing. Like I'll admit, like after I've been playing for a while, I was like, okay, there's, you know, a handful of visual glitches and they always seem to happen in the same way at the same time, but that doesn't make it any less disconcerting. It just meant that I had walked through this haunted house so many times, I knew where all the scare spots were.
Right, which is not a pass. It just, you know. And actually, one of the things that kind of falls on the visuals that drove me out the wall. So there's and actually it was just recently, I think, a thread on Tumblr or something, where basically like somebody said, like, what are some of the ways that you've like kludged your game to make it better? Right?
These are always so fun to like see behind the curtain for developers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like for instance, one of them is like Coyote Time.
Not sure if I know that one.
Oh, it's awesome. It's in platformers where basically it's the amount of extra time you get after you have completely left the platform where you can still jump and it'll register as a jump.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful one because it's more fun that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That and the other one that I think both kind of circle around like this kind of thing is in a lot of first person shooters, the very first shot that the bad guy takes at you will never hit you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because
again,
like,
then the noise and the visual alerts you that they're there.
Right. Yeah. So like when you first peek out around cover, you know, it's like if you just peek out around cover and you get shot in the face, that would be infinitely frustrating, right?
Yeah. Very realistic, super not fun.
Right. So what's super not fun is when you're leaving the random encounter that you were forced into because there's no feasible way that you can get away from it, but we'll get into that later. And you're in the desert, which for some reason is shooting random fireballs at you and is 10 times harder than being in the grass, but you can easily walk into the desert by accident, like within the first 30 seconds, but we'll get into that later. When you're leaving that area, right, it's shooting fireballs at you. If you are off of the screen, it'll still register a hit from a fireball. And I know because I got tagged with one and I got pissed because I was at full health and had my semi-worthless shooting sword, but it was all I had. And I got tagged by a fireball I never saw, you know? All I got was a little like,
yeah,
you know?
No amount of skill could have possibly prepared you for that moment.
No, there's no skill. There's nothing. I mean, like, and literally, even if I was aware that that was a thing, it wouldn't have made any difference. Like, it was just, I just walked into, like you said, like the horror room. And even if I knew exactly where the scare spot was, it's like, this is still the scare spot. But here's the fun part is we shiv you. We, sorry. We'll shank you.
Shank with a shiv.
You shank with a shiv. I apologize. But I mean, that's the thing is that's what's going to happen. There's just nothing that you can do about it because that is where you get shanked and that's it. And yeah.
Got it. Yeah. It's awful. And, so all of my kind of like final thought on all of that is all of the graphics in this game are very much unique to this game. Like every Zelda game probably has Octoroks and every Zelda game has probably the Iron Knuckle and every Zelda game has Link and every Zelda game, you know, on and on and on and on. Like they have a lot of things in common and yet none of them look anything close to the way this one looks. Even the enemies that are the same because it's a different vantage point or they're a slightly different color or something. But I just like, I want to say there's nothing wrong with these graphics, but they're Zelda 2 graphics. So I hate them. Like I just hate them because they're from this game.
Yeah, no, they're super neat and super unique and they are from this game. Yeah. My final note on visuals is just, and we don't have to spend much time on it. I just feel like it's worth mentioning is the seizure-inducing death, you know?
Oh, no, that is completely valid to mention because I mean, you know, you and I, we're both able-bodied. We don't have, you know, sensitivity to epilepsy or seizures or anything like that, and that's tremendous. You know what? A lot of people super do, and
Yep.
I'll bet a huge portion of those people probably enjoy playing video games. And what would not be fun is to be playing a video game and to then like wake up in the hospital because the game sent you into a seizure. And I know like there's a limit, like you want to be able to have visuals like that in games and movies and things for people who aren't negatively affected by them, but you also don't want to say up front like, oh, there might be some flashing, because then people are like watching out for the flashing. And like I think you should probably err on the side of not sending people into epileptic fits, but it's even for someone I have really sharp vision. I'm very fortunate in that way. Like I have no acuity problems or anything, but every time I died, and oh my God, did I die a lot, but every time I died, I was just like literally palms in my eyes, like stop.
No, it like reaches through your eyes to rack your brain and give you a headache. And to be fair, a lot of games did this, and I'd like to think none do it anymore because it's just such an obvious, like, why would you? But it was definitely not, it was not uncommon around this time. That being said, and again, it's so hard to separate the emotion from the reality. This felt more intense somehow, you know, like maybe the colors that they used or the rate of flashing or the brightness. But it really did, like, because, you know, I mean, like, dude, Pokemon, man. Pokemon had, like, seizure-inducing flashing all the time. And I didn't even think about it until somebody said, like, yeah, that's going to really wreck somebody with epilepsy. And I was like, oh, yeah. This one, I was like,
it's like red, black, and white, and it flashes super fast. Yeah, it's really, it's jarring. It's like the kind of visual you would see in a horror movie.
Yeah, it's, super, super awful. But sound.
Yeah,
we got through it, man. Dude, we got through it. We got through visuals, man. You know, we're doing good.
Chugging along. So this is probably the most positive things I'll have to say about the game is, I mean, the music's good. Like, it's Zelda music. Like, it's not my favorite versions of most of these songs. Like the overture is like a little different in this game than it is in most of them. And some of the songs are, it's kind of like if you think of like a crappy teen drama, and there's like the girl is like, I can't listen to this song. This is what was playing in the car when Johnny dumped me. It's like, it's a good song, but I have this negative memory of it. Like, that's how I feel about a lot of this music, because the random encounter music is not bad, and the palace music is actually pretty good, except I hate random encounters, and the palaces are frustrating nightmares. So, like, if I could just sit and listen to this music, or if it was over like a good game, then I would probably be like thumbs up all around, but I just can't. I mean, we're probably going to say this 1,000 times each. It's like, I just can't separate it from the emotion of what's happening when I'm hearing this music. So, you know, thumbs up to the composer, thumbs down to everything the composer's music got attached to.
So, like, basically now I'm imagining, like, you hear that song, you know, like, just start playing, and you're like, turn it off. And then you, like, stare sadly outside of a rainy window, you know, as you just, so for me, very, very similar. Like, I couldn't, you know, the music, fine, you know, it's fine. But literally my note was like, cause the very first part, like the first intro music, it goes like, dun, da 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 dun, da dun, and you're like, yes, and then it kind of goes into its own little thing, you know?
Yeah, the totally different overworld music, which is not the overture we're all used to.
Right. And so at first I was like, oh man, I wanted to listen to cool Zelda music. And now I'm glad that cool Zelda music isn't a part of this whatsoever. You know, I'm glad that those two things were never conflated. But literally the occasional similar music, all it did was just remind me of the game I wasn't playing, you know? I mean, it was like, you know, like having your favorite, let's just say your favorite place in the world as a kid was Discovery Zone, man. You just love going to Discovery Zone. Like, I mean, like, yeah, they're a little bit weak on the arcades, but man, they had like that huge, you know, like ball pit and all this sort of stuff. And somebody's like, hey man, you want to go to a 15-year-old Chuck E. Cheese? And you're like, well, that's probably about the same. And then you're greeted by creepy animatronics and like awful pizza. And you're like, no, this isn't Discovery Zone at all. It's like that, you know?
Hey man, it's just like you've never been to a Chuck E. Cheese? Come on. It's just like Discovery Zone. This is nothing like Discovery Zone.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah, and it is the fact that they have the same lead in, that like ultra famous, deeply entrenched in history lead into the overture, and then it's like do 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 do, and you're just like, wait, what? Where am I? What year is it? Like, it's just,
Yeah, it'd be like it'd be like somebody walking up to you and like saying like, "Hey, you remember Independence Day? Independence Day was a great movie. My fellow Americans, we have hamburger purple monkey dishwasher." Like it's like, whoa, what? That's not the monologue, man. Like
it's like, oh man, Independence Day was such a good disaster movie. Do you want to watch 2012? No, I don't want to watch 2012. I want to watch
yes.
Independence
No,
Day.
This is totally the 2012 of Independence Day of video games. That is what this is. This is the Simon's Quest of Zelda. This is the 2012 of Zelda. We need to come up. This is worth putting in the show notes. Is all of like this is the 2012 of Zelda. This is the Simon's Quest of Zelda. Yeah, because it is just every poor recreation. Quick tangent just to add some levity in this miring, godforsaken mess. Somebody mentioned something to me recently that I thought was actually kind of like it's something that should never be done. Like, don't do this. But it'd be really funny. I mean, funny outside to everybody else. But basically, if you were tasked with giving a best man or a maid of honor speech, right?
Oh boy.
Just go up there and completely deadpan, deliver the entire monologue from Independence Day, and then just walk away.
Like the one from right before they go to, like, today we celebrate our that one.
Yeah, that one. Like, just don't tell anybody beforehand what you're doing. Don't like you can't break, but you just gotta go give the whole thing and then just walk out. I don't know why, man. That tickles me. Like, obviously I hope it never happens because it's a terrible thing to do to somebody at their wedding, but I don't know. It's pretty funny.
No, it's hard to say like I would have tolerated that at my wedding, but I do basically live my life as if I was Roger Rabbit. So part of me wants to believe that like if my best man had given that as his best man speech, that I would have just laughed. Like my extended family would have been miserable and I would have just been like, what? That was funny.
Yeah, come on. That was like a 2-minute joke that never stopped joking. But yeah.
Actually,
anyways.
you know what? If you really wanted to, we're just going to talk about this for a second now.
I can talk about this.
if you really wanted to like completely screw with your guests, right? Especially if you were one of those people who's like, and I'm not one of these people, but if you were like forced into having a larger wedding than you wanted by like your parents or your spouse's parents, like to have the best man or the maid of honor deliver that speech and then the bride and groom have to act like they are incredibly moved. like get up and hug them and just be like crying. Like
okay,
and then what, because then everybody else is like, should we understand what just happened?
No, I agree with you, but it'd be really awesome. You got to get the whole wedding party involved, and then like everybody gets up, like cries, and is like, yeah, and then leaves. And then you filter back in like 5 minutes later. It's like, today we celebrate our Independence Day. Everybody gets up and cheers and like hugs, and then like goes like woohoo, and then just like leaves the venue, like the room. Yeah.
Well, there's a Family Guy cutaway here, is because they all run outside, and for some reason there's jets. And they all get in their jets and fly away.
Anyways, but no, back to this.
Man, how much more fun was that to discuss, though? Wasn't that good? It was good.
Not a hard bar to limbo under, man. But anyways, or vault over, I guess. Yeah. So the only other note that I have on audio, other than just all it did was remind me of the poor choices that you made me make, was just that it still has the beeping, man. Like,
so this is one of the only other notes I have, which is all of the audio is fairly inoffensive, but man, that beeping is just dialed up to like plus 10 decibels, and it's just the most grating sound they were able to make the NES generate. It's harsh. Like, it stands above everything. And I guess that's what they wanted, but like they could have dialed it back quite a bit.
Well, and here's my my issue with this is that, so with all of the Zelda games do this. This is a Zelda staple, right? And the purpose of the sound is to let you know, like, hey, you're low on health, like, you know, you could die soon, right? In all of the other Zelda games, health could be attained.
Yeah.
You know? So that's the thing, is there was something that you could, that's the whole point of a warning button is that it lets you know that there's something that needs to be done in order to avert catastrophe, right? There's no point in the beeping in this, because in Zelda and all of the other Zeldas, you could, like, you're like, oh god, and part of it is like, I want the beeping to stop, so you'll stop what you're doing to go seek out health. There's no health to seek out.
Well, okay,
you know?
so I will. I assume we were going to both, you know, reveal our shame later, but like neither of us made it very far into this game. Like not,
No.
I made it a little bit further than you, but neither of us made it very far.
Nope.
You do actually get a life spell later.
Okay.
That restores health.
Right. I mean,
And magic is fairly abundant. So like even if you were low on magic, you could just murder enemies until one of them drops a magic jar. I don't know what you call those things. A magic carafe. And then you have more magic, and then you can use the life spell, which will make your health go up, which will make the beeping stop. But no, there are no health drops. Like you can't murder things until they drop hearts, which as far as I know, literally every other Zelda game does.
Yeah, and also too, and this definitely strays into mechanics, but like other Zelda games, so Zelda, as a general rule, is about exploration. Unless you're playing Skyward Sword, then it's about garbage. But, but Zelda is about exploration, right? So, and I actually read something about this forever ago, but and I think we've mentioned it before in the podcast, where in newer games, right, you can take X amount of damage before you die, like in quick succession, right? So you don't have a health bar. It's just like you get shot 5 times in under 30 seconds and you die, right?
Oh yeah, like there's some kind of visual, but it's not a traditional HP meter.
Right, but the thing is that if you then don't take any damage for X amount of time, you basically go back to full health.
Yeah,
right?
you undie.
Right, and so old school video games like Doom is a great example, right? Like you had health, right? So having a health bar enforces exploration, because if you go into an area where like you get your lunch eaten, right, and you know, then you got to go looking for health drops, you know, or what have you, or you know, like hidden health,
hunting for them, whatever.
Right. So that's what you did in Zelda, and Zelda Link to the Past, is, you know, you would, like, when you were low on health, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go through these bushes, or maybe go into this area, or, you know, try to kill some bad guys. And in the process of doing that, and then forcing you to go explore areas you might not have as thoroughly because you're looking for health drops, you may find some other cool stuff, right? This game doesn't do any of that. You know, literally every room I walked into, I didn't want to walk into, because I'm going to walk out of this best case scenario at less health, which means it's not about exploration. It's a game about, like, you know, taking tests. It's literally about a game about like walking into a room and taking a test. And then the fact that they later on add in a mechanic to just simply give yourself health, again, it's not enforcing exploration, which is what the game's theoretically core aesthetic is. So they actually instituted mechanics that are antithetical to the core aesthetic, which is stupid.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you could argue like, well, instead of finding hearts, you find magic, which allows you to restore your own health. But I would argue again that gating it in that way and saying like, well, you can recover health, we just made it unnecessarily difficult, is really just a complicated way of saying, you know what? I like that beeping noise. I think everyone should listen to it all the time. Let's design a game around the beeping noise.
So what that reminds me of, and again, you know, any tangent from this block, is you know, like the okay, well, like you don't get health drops, but you can get mana, which you can use to cast spells, which will restore your health. It's just kind of like you know, Rick, that's slavery. Well, no, they're not enslaved. They do work for each other, right? And then I just siphon off. Well, that just sounds like slavery with a bunch of extra steps. Like, that's what this is. It's just monotony with a bunch of extra steps. Anyways, whatever. But yeah, so the beeping noise is there, and it's a lot more obnoxious because it's a lot harder to do anything about it. And I feel that they kind of missed the whole point of the beeping. But
Yeah. No, I'm inclined to, especially your assertion that like every time you enter a room, you're just like, how miserable will I be when I'm done with this room? They actually, in a small way, they incentivize you to die because you go into a room, and if at the end of that room there's a lot of beeping, the beeping can literally drive you to suicide because when you die, you will start over in the room you just entered. So if I just finished a room and I am on death's door, basically the smartest thing I can do if I have more than one life remaining is go into the next room and kill myself.
Yep. Just
Because
fall
then
on
the
your sword.
yes, then the beeping will stop and I'll have all of my health and magic back. And you do get the life spell fairly early on. It's like it's between the first and second palace,
Mm.
but it's still like just don't do that. Like
Yeah.
health drops. Like it worked great in the first game. I don't know why you felt like you need to change this just to make me hear the beeping more often.
Yeah, no, and actually, do you have any other notes on sound? Because I'm gonna, because we're flirting with
We
mechanics.
are under how well does the audio serve gameplay? I literally have it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Like it's not harmful. It's not amazing. They could have done things better, but it's also not like as tragic as the visuals are. So I'm just like, it's fine.
Whatever. Yeah. So one of the a game that I'm rather fond of, and I think it's fairly well reviewed. The Last of Us. Have you heard of it? I don't know.
Oh, you know what? I got like a couple dozen playthroughs into it, and I just couldn't get into it. After
Really?
I played it nonstop for like the third or fourth time, I was just like, you know what? This isn't that much fun.
Yeah.
Like a long beard and like my clothes have turned to rags, and like I'm wasting away from missing meals.
Like on Steam, you just gave it like a 0 out of 10, but it says like 10,000 hours played. And you're like,
Exactly. Yes.
your review says it's okay. You know.
It's fine.
But no, in that game, one of the things, because that is definitely a survival horror, is that I realize is in most RPGs, right, when the game says, hey, go this way, you're like, screw you, I'm going to go the other way because that's where all the cool stuff is, right? I realized in that game, distinctly did not do that because the way they set up the mechanics is that there was nothing that could be down this blind alley that could be worth the zombies I knew were down there because I could see the zombies, right? And I was like, so I know there's bad guys down there. I don't get experience for killing bad guys, right? So there's no incentive for me to go doing that. I will waste resources in the process. And I don't know that there are any resources down there to get. Just like in real life, I wouldn't go down there, right? So Legend of Zelda, I felt the same thing. The only like in every room that I went into, I was like, there's nothing in here that incentivizes me to be in here. There's just bad guys, right? Eventually, I'm going to get through all this and maybe get something of value, but chances are I'm going to get my balls rocked. And so with all that being said, but the difference though is I didn't have an option. I couldn't go anywhere else. I had to go into this meat grinder of a room. It's like Saw. It's like Saw the game. Like, it's like walking in the room and I could hear, let's play a game. And I was like, I don't want to play this game.
I don't want to. So yeah, I mean, oh god, okay. So we're as guilty as we ever are about just more than anything wanting to talk about the mechanics, and I think almost everything wrong with this game could be fixed by tweaking a lot of the mechanics. So you want to talk about the mechanics?
Yes, I do, and I would agree with that. Is that I would say that this is kind of like a Jenga of mechanics, you know, in that like they have just screwed up enough things just enough that they all of them start to compound each other, you know? So like having a bad hitbox, we've played other games with bad hitboxes, but everything else was pretty good. And that was just a little frustrating, right? One of the things that that kind of like messed with me with this one is that some enemies do give you experience and some don't.
So the nearest I can tell is that you can't just walk back and forth down a hallway and kill the same enemies over and over, except that there are some hallways where these are not the same enemies that have respawned. This is a hallway of infinitely respawning enemies, because if it's an infinitely respawning enemy, it gives you experience forever. If it's an enemy you've already killed and you're just going back the way you came, then you don't get experience anymore. So You can't even just say like, well, you know what? I have no life. I'm going to just grind till I'm as powerful as I can possibly be because
How I play tactics, man.
exactly, like that's not even an option unless you're willing to get, 2 experience from like floating head thingies that are like Medusa heads. This game really is like Simon's Quest.
I'm telling you, dude, it is Simon's Quest, the Zelda. It's Zelda's Quest. Yeah. So, well, no, but also the random encounter pigmen in the, bear with me, the random encounter pigmen in the forest areas do not drop experience, as near as I could tell.
Um I think you might be right. I think some of the random encounter enemies just straight up do not give experience. Maybe none of them do.
Well, but the jello.
Oh, the jelly guys do. Oh crap. Yeah, so what is the pattern here?
Exactly. No, I was just kind of like, because okay, it's hard to talk about this in a coherent way. So, when I got hit by one of the jelly random encounters, and I killed some jellies, and then there are the bigger, scarier encounters. I was like, oh well, no, this is good because they'll drop more experience, and I want to see what leveling up even does at this point. And then the pigman dropped no experience. I was like, well, what the hell, game? Like, why would I? And again, that just, I don't know what they're trying to motivate me for, because it's like, if they want me to explore and like do this stuff, like go visit every nook and cranny, right? Then you want everything to give you experience because you'd be more okay with grinding and therefore more okay with exploring, right? But if literally there are some encounters where my best option is to leave in the same exact condition in which I came into it, then I have no incentive to explore. I have the best incentive to get from point A to point B as quickly as humanly possible, especially when the encounters drop so paltry experience that you're never going to level up by grinding, So there was no reason to explore. In fact, I was actively disincentivized from exploring because any moment I spent exploring meant I could get roped into an encounter that ultimately just leaves me weaker.
Yeah, and the whole leveling up mechanic. So I haven't played every Zelda game because there was like a few I never got around to or that I actively skipped because nope. But I'm
Skyward Sword.
Yeah. Yes, exactly like that. Uh, but as far as I know, this is the only one that has the experience mechanic of like a traditional RPG.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay. So they did something that I can't think of another RPG I've ever played that did this. And I'm glad they never did it again. And I'm glad I've never seen it in another game because this is one of those punishing things. Like you introduced me to the difference between like a game that's hard and a game that is punishing and unforgiving. And this game is punishing and unforgiving. And some of the ways that it's punishing and unforgiving are insidious. And one of them is the experience mechanic because the game does not communicate to you that sometimes when you gain a level, you might not want to use that experience.
Wait, no, I didn't even pick up on that at all.
Yeah. So here's the thing. You have attack, magic, and health, right?
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say, and now it all makes sense.
Yes, yes. You have to cancel after gaining a level to gain enough experience to choose the thing from that list that you might want to raise. So if you have 500 experience and that will let you raise your health, but it takes 700 to raise your attack, you can either take the 500 on health now and then gain 700 and spend it on attack, or you can pass and get 200 more and then be able to raise your attack sooner. And the reason you might want to do that is because magic is almost worthless because you have so much of it compared to attack and compared to health. So you are strongly incentivized to raise your attack as much as you possibly can first. Even with how easy it is to die, you are still incentivized to raise your attack, but it's not communicated to you that you have to do this like voodoo to make it happen. And if you go to continue when you have unspent points, you lose them all.
Yes, exactly. So the thing is that they are actually then mechanically incentivizing you. If you can even puzzle out this little Rubik's Cube of a puzzle, they are actively incentivizing you to be more risky and dump more time into the game. Because then, like you said, is if you're like desperately trying to get your attack up and you just duff it, then that's like an hour of your life you're just never going to get back. No, it's it really is. The game is very deceptive. It's not. It is, and to be fair, like this is during the game when they were still trying to figure some of this stuff out. Like what even made games fun to play. But that being said, like Zelda was fun because it gave you like a goal that was in line with stuff that you wanted to do. You, the player, wanted to do. This game, they basically said, what can we do to drain people's time? And everything seems in service of that, which actually, so there are some enemies that, and maybe I'm just old man George and I can't, react as quickly. There's some enemies that move too fast to be dodged. Like there, I can think of two. First of all, the random encounters, right? There's absolutely, in my opinion, no reason for sprites to appear on the screen. They might as well just do what Final Fantasy does, which is just you walk and then all of a sudden it's like
and combat has started.
Yeah, because the things appear, but they move so fast and in such an erratic way that there's no real effective way to dodge them.
No, unless, because sometimes when they randomly spawn, they're like weirdly far away from you. So every once in a while, the enemies will spawn, and because there's always 3, I think, and they will spawn at like east, west, and north, and you happen to be going south, and they happen to be at the maximum distance, and you happen to avoid them. But it's like, you didn't do anything to avoid them. The game just chose to let you get away.
Which is the same as no encounter.
It's just not having a random encounter.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like, so all of that was stupid. And there was one time where I was, like, walking down a narrow path, and a bad guy just spawned and just, like, full-on ran into me. And I was like, okay, so what was I supposed to do there? There was that, and also the skull things that suck your magic in Parappa the Rapper Palace.
Yep.
Right? Most of them move slowly enough that you could get around them, one of them moves so fast that if he's just in your line, as far as I'm concerned, you just get hit, and again, that's such a bizarre thing to do, to have 3 out of 4 guys all move at this like very normal, predictable speed, so that way you can, like, they move quickly, so it still requires you to like react and kind of plan, and that's cool. That's what games are about. And then one moves twice as fast, and it's like, well, why? I mean,
the optimist in me says, like, because they want you to get hit. They want you to notice that getting hit by that thing drains your magic, so that you learn as a player, hey, there are enemies in the world that when they hit you, drain magic instead of health, or magic in addition to health. Like, I know some of the enemies later do, but because they then don't go out of their way to communicate that information to you clearly, it's like, crap, how was I supposed to dodge that? And the answer is, no, you weren't supposed to dodge that. You were supposed to learn other information, but it's like, oh, here's this textbook on physics, and then you open it, and it's like all written in German, and you're like, well, I don't speak German. It's like, yeah, but that book will teach you physics. It's like, but I don't read German.
Yeah, and so not only does it, not do anything to keep that in mind, right, to actually bring your attention to the thing that it's doing, it does no way to kind of make it back up to you, the player, right? So it's not like they hit you and then give you a magic drop, to say like, okay, we gated you, like you now know this information, but and so here's like a gimme, right? They expect you to go back through that area, like you have to backtrack through there. So if it's a gating mechanic, then you shouldn't have to backtrack through it again. And then third, it doesn't always hit you. Like if it's a gating mechanic, it needs to make sure that it hits you always. Like if it hit me every time, I'd be like, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But instead, it just zooms in front of you and hits you like a well, I didn't like it very much. I didn't care for it. I would like to take a moment to talk about, and this does speak a bit to the hitbox, but in a different way, projectiles, right?
Uh-huh.
So most games, right, have like a high projectile and a low projectile, right? So like, especially if you've got a shield like Link does, if you're standing up, it'll block high projectiles. And if you duck, it'll block low projectiles. And if you jump, like it'll block things that would have normally passed over your head, right? This game don't do none of that. It's so difficult to figure out where the projectiles are coming from, like in what space your shield needs to be in to actively block them.
Yeah, I remember having this exact same complaint when we played ActRaiser, because it's like you have up and down, and the enemies have like 10 degrees of delineation, like as much as the graphics engine will support. And it's like, well, so half of those degrees of delineation are on the top and half of them are on the bottom, but the ones around the middle, it's really hard to tell where they are. Like, are they on the top or are they on the bottom? And because you are so blocky in your movements and they are so smooth in their movements, it's like, how many hours and hours do I have to sink into this before I can tell the difference between like a pixel higher where I need to be standing and a pixel lower where I would have need to have been ducking? It's just, it's not good. It's bad conveyance.
Yeah, no, and the conveyance in general in this game is awful, because I can't tell you how many times I was like, what is, why, where am I going? Like, what am I supposed to be doing next?
Oh, well, so there's something about the level up mechanic that I didn't even think to mention before. So when you do finish a palace and you like restore one of the gems or whatever the hell it is you're supposed to be doing, because I'm honestly not super clear.
Nope. All I know is that Zelda's been is super unconscious.
She's really tired.
Yeah. And apparently Link's solution to coma is quest, not doctor.
Yeah, no, I know that in the opening of the game they explain like what's going on, and I didn't read it. I wanted to get this over with as quickly as possible.
No, that's fine. Just post it in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely. So when you get to the end of a palace and you beat, the boss, and you restore the gem to the palace, you gain a level. Here's the thing. When you gain a level in Zelda II Simon's Quest, what it does is it brings you all the way up to that cap. So if it's 500, it brings you up to 500. If it's 1,000 or 2,000, it brings you up to 2,000. So guess what that means? If you have 1,999 experience and you beat a palace and you restore a gem, you get 1 experience.
Right. Which is a super dick move.
Yeah. So again, you are now incentivized to like leave your quest, go murder enough things to gain a level, and then go back in there and then, put the gem up so that you basically get a free level. And yeah, I guess there's a small part of me that's like, well, but that's an exploitable game mechanic. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't discover that it's exploitable, the normal flow of the mechanic is unrewarding. Like the first palace, because I beat the first palace and I got like within millimeters of beating the second one. But like when I beat the first palace, I needed like 500 experience to get to the next level, and I had like 450. And that's like 1 tough enemy. That's like 1 iron knuckle. Right. And so like when I gained that level, I was like, yay. It's just like incredibly unsatisfying.
Yeah. No. Incredibly unsatisfying. It's Zelda 2. Incredibly unsatisfying. But no, yeah. One of the things that with the poor conveyance, as far as like, where do I go? What am I supposed to be doing? And I want to put a pin in towns, because that was its own special nightmare. But
did you at least get to talk to I Am Error?
I did get to talk to I Am Error.
Yes. And the hours of misery were worth it.
Yeah, right. No, that was fine. And okay, well, just to talk about it briefly, because so the towns were dumb and awful and boring, and the text crawling speed is so slow.
It's so slow.
It makes me want to claw my eyes out, and you have to talk to people. But okay, did you talk to the red lady that restores your health?
Oh, the prostitute?
Thank you. Okay.
No,
yes,
I mean yeah,
clearly the prostitute.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, this is a well-established, like we all, the joke has long been beaten to death. But then, there's also an aging prostitute that restores your magic.
Yes, I mean, wonder what the different process is. But anyways, no, this was all new to me, because I didn't know about red prostitute lady. And so what I did was, so I hit the first brick wall, and then full disclosure, I definitely looked up a walkthrough, because I was like, maybe maybe it's me.
Yeah,
It wasn't me.
I absolutely. There's no shame in Zelda 2 Simon's Quest. Like you have to look up just like in the actual Simon's Quest. No one begrudges you for looking up a walkthrough because people they make no sense. Some of them outright lie to you. Some of them convey the beginning of a quest and then there is no way to glean what to do next. You just know that there's a thing in the universe that needs doing.
Right. Yeah. Or like they're like something Parappa Palace. And I'm like, neat. What? Where? No, I need way more information. And I'd ask you for follow up, but apparently you talk like this because that's how fast the text crawling is. But yeah, so basically though, when I went up to, because I read on thing, it was like, the red lady restores your health. I'm like, I like getting my health restored. So I just figured I'd go up to her and she'd be like, bling, magic, whatever. And she's like, I'll go restore your health. And then she goes into the room and then you go into the room and then just you come out of the room with your health restored. And I was like, like I did giggle like an 8-year-old. I was like, are you serious? Did all of this just happen? Like any of this could have been, I mean, they had to have been trying to convey that she was a prostitute because anything could have made that less smarmy, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like, jokes aside, like I don't know what else that could possibly what else could it possibly be?
Like, is she like nursing you back to health? Giggity. I mean,
there's nothing to indicate that she or her home are any different from any other. Like, it's not like, oh, well, that's a hospital or that's a doctor's office or she's a cleric or there's nothing. She looks like every other person. Her house looks like every other house. There's absolutely nothing remarkable about her except that she invites you into her house. She has her own walk speed. Like she saunters and you come out fully restored.
Yeah. No, even if they just had like a staff of Hermes on the side or something like that,
a plus, like a red cross.
I mean, personally, I'm prefer the staff of Hermes, but I could definitely see how it would be harder to render. But yeah, no, I mean, like you said, like plus just anything. But anyways, okay. So bad conveyance. Okay, so the darkness, the dark caves. Okay, that has a special place of hatred in my heart because you don't know. So I went into the first dark cave and just got rocked badly because an invisible basically enemy killed me. And I didn't know that there was such a thing as invisible enemies. All I did was I just like ran, got hit, and then knocked into a pit and died. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of like then went a second time and like looked around and I couldn't really see anything. So I just took another stab at it, knocked into a pit and died. And then I just jumped into the pit the third time because I was already down 2 lives. So, I mean, obviously that's the call. And so then, but all of the caves had these like basically invisible enemies. Now, some of them do let you know where they are by like weird, very vague markings on the floor.
It's that one crawly enemy that looks kind of like a hermit crab, I guess.
Yeah.
Its little crawly things creep onto the floor in such a way that you can see where it intersects the floor.
Correct. And the Octoroks in one of the other adjoining caves, like you can see when they're on the ground. But that being said, is that I didn't like when I first got my lunch eaten in that one cave, I was like, oh, I must need an item in order to light up these caves. But you don't. That's the thing is the game relies on you going through at least one cave without lighting it up.
Yes, but so again, I'm not trying to defend it, but the one cave you have to go through without lighting it up has no pits and only one enemy. So you can just like run and jump and you will eventually make it through that space. But all of the other caves like send you to a gruesome death if you try and go through them without the candle. So you have no reason to believe that one cave would be the one you can make it through and that you must make it through without the candle.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing is that, it's 3-card Monty, only when you pick incorrectly, they pull out a gun and shoot you.
Hey, is this the right cave? Blam.
Blam. I guess not. Like it's just And okay, so the one other thing that we absolutely I don't want to get through the podcast without touching on is the difficulty curve.
There isn't one.
No.
I mean, a difficulty curve implies that it starts out at a certain difficulty and then it ramps up to another difficulty at some later point. And actually, a side note, because tangents are the only thing keeping me from strangling myself, I read an interesting article. You know Ken Jennings, the guy who won Jeopardy like 100,000 times?
Passingly.
Okay, so I guess he does like debunking blog posts where he's like,
okay, cool.
I'm a smart guy. I'm going to write about this thing people frequently and commonly mess up. And he said that the difficulty curve, as it's implied, because there are multiple ways that you could be implying it, but the way that it's generally implied is actually the reverse of what people think, because the presumed axes would be difficulty and time. So if you have the curve going like spiking up, you know, so like an up and to the right, well, that means that after a certain amount of time, it just becomes either infinitely difficult, or if you put that parabola like the other way, then after a certain amount of time, it gets no more difficult, no matter how much effort you put into it. So it's like you have to map the axes to different things besides just time. Otherwise, that like stereotypical like sloping graph just doesn't convey what you think it conveys. And it's one of those funny things where it's like everybody knows what you mean, but if you actually dissect it, it's like, okay, but this isn't what I meant.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it does still convey meaning, at least better than Zelda does.
Yeah, it's communicating information in a way that isn't like, did I get hit? Am I going to get hit? Am I going to kill this monster? Nobody knows.
Yeah, who knows? Time for awfulness.
Yeah, difficulty curve.
Yeah, difficulty curve. I would say that it has a difficulty asymptote. You know, like it has a difficulty like as in like X over 0, and then when you get like to a certain area, like that's or sorry, like whatever 1 over you know, like X minus whatever, you know, and so that way it's like when you hit that area, that function becomes 1 over 0, and it just hits a wall, because literally I could not. And you know, as we've mentioned, you know, we want to do a good podcast. We want to like speak educatedly about the game, and I did not feel that just getting like a sixth of the way through it that I'd be able to do that. So I spent way more time than I should have for my mental health trying to get past that palace. And eventually, when I got exactly as far as I could, I think 4 or 5 times in quick succession, got like literally no further. I was like, I can't. There's no. I'm not making any progress.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the analogy I kind of came up with is, have you ever heard someone, or maybe even been this person yourself, but have you ever heard someone singing a song, maybe a cappella, and they lose the key and then they just never can like get it back again? That's kind of how it felt. Is like there were a few times in the first, like on my way to the first palace and like kind of looking around the general like temple area, and even in the first palace where I was like, okay, like I got to do this. And if I do that, I'm going to get hit. So I won't do that. And then this guy kind of moves like this. And I was like, I understand how the game universe works. And then I lost the key of that song, and I just couldn't get it back. I was like, I understand more or less what I need. Like, I know how the song goes, but like, I'm not singing it right.
Yeah.
And it's so unfun when that happens, because it no longer feels challenging. It feels punishing, because not only do you feel unable to overcome these obstacles without sinking in a disproportionate amount of time. Like, I've been playing video games for, as far as I'm concerned, my entire life. I could eventually master the idiosyncrasies of this universe, but I do not want to. I see no reason to do that, because it wouldn't be a fun thing. It would just be like I lost a bet and now I have to prove I can do this. So to combine that amount of difficulty, like being completely unable to find the key of this song again, with how rudely it treats you when you die, it's just like, it's not fun. It's just not fun.
No, it is 100% not fun. And it doesn't, and I'm not one who believes that video games always need to be fun, but it's not engaging either.
It's not enjoyable. It's not engaging. It's not fun. It's not any good words. It's a bunch of bad words.
It's not scary. It's just awful. No, the analogy is just not an, I don't know. This is not sure if this is exactly an analogy, but like literally like the fourth time I died, like trying in that same area, literally. So again, and because, I was just stuck, and grinding won't gain you levels, right? So literally there's just nothing I could do. I had all of the items, I had all the power-ups. It was just my skill was not getting the job done, right? So I did that, and I was just kind of like, oh God. And I reminded me of Home Alone when it's like, we got to go get him. Nah. He just wants us to go back through his little fun house so we get all tore up again. Like that line delivered by Joe Pesci. It's exactly the way I felt when I died for like the fourth time. I was like, no, they just want me to go through their fun house and like get all tore up again. I was like, no, I refuse. I refuse to go back through and get hit by the paint cans again and get the tarantula on the face. I wanted none of it. It was done. But yeah, no, it's just, oh God, it's just so awful. And I want to say, honestly, I cannot think of any redeeming quality that it has. Or no, I take that back. Until we spoke briefly before this, in which case you actually gave me its only redeeming quality, which was that it really, really canonized and emblazoned in gold across the universe what to never do again.
Yeah. It's like Nintendo threw probably millions, maybe in the high hundreds of thousands. I don't know how much game development cost at this time.
$5.
Yeah, they
threw $5.
They threw a lot of money at being like, okay, we confirmed that's a terrible idea, and that's a terrible idea. I don't know how we ever thought that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Like just going down the list of things, and okay, so friend of the show, my former co-host from Flipping Tables, Mike Edwards, who actually did the cover art for our show. So if you like the artwork for the show, go like pay him to make art for you. But he knows this is a bad game. And every time somebody complains about it, that's his main defense, is like that he respects that Nintendo tried a bunch of things that were new at the time and were novel. And I was kind of saving this for Does It Hold Up? But this game feels thoughtless. Like They tried all these new things without considering what the sum of the parts would be, because it's really easy to die. Also, the thing that happens when you continue makes the game unfun. And it's like, wait, so you're going to have to continue a lot, right? Yeah. And continuing sucks the fun out of the game? Yeah. Maybe don't combine those two things. Maybe don't put salt and sugar like on this dish. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, the hitbox is going to be really terrible and confusing. It's like, okay, so you're going to get hit a lot, but you must have like a ton of life, right? No, you die at the drop of a hat. A stiff breeze is enough to murder you. And it's like, maybe don't put those two things together, because that sounds really awful. And there's just like this constant amount, and I'm not like shaming the devs, because I mean, this game design is a hard thing, and they did a bunch of new things that had either never been done or never been done in this combination. But I really wish someone had the authority when they were playtesting this to be like, can we change a bunch of these things before we ship this game? Because this is not fun.
Yeah, no, it is definitively not fun. And I think it's just like, and so, okay, so then easy lead in.
Oh no, wait. Before we get there.
Okay.
I have a list of ways that the game specifically punishes you.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
I just want to share them with you, because we've already talked about a bunch of them, but I just want to make sure we get through all of the ones I had and give you an opportunity.
Sure.
So how slow the text boxes are is like a punishment, because you just are trying to find out where to go, because the game does not tell you where to go or what to do.
Yes, and button mashing makes you start over.
Yes, because you can't just speed the text up, which seems, again, like that's something that is now entrenched in gameplay. Maybe at this time, or apparently at this time, it was not. The continue mechanic is absolute and utter garbage, and seems like someone should have noticed that during QA. The experience thing specifically, not just having to start back at the temple, but losing all of your freaking experience, seems like they're just trying to artificially extend gameplay.
You're absolutely wasting your time.
Yeah, I'm just completely wasting your time. And then I noticed, so I made it to most of the way through the second palace. So in one of the other villages, this woman says, "I lost my mirror." And then there's a house that I guess is her house. I guess. And you go into it and there's a table, there's no people in the house, and you go over to the table and you press the action button like you were going to start a conversation, and it just says, you found a mirror? Like, how was I supposed to know that? Like, she doesn't say, I lost my mirror when I was at Jim's house. She doesn't say, I lost my mirror when I was getting ready before I left this morning. So you don't even know that you should be looking for it in a house. You just know that she lost it. And because she doesn't know where it is and she's out about in town, it's a fair assumption that if it's somewhere, it's probably going to be out in the world. Also, you can't see it. There's no visual indicator that it's there, and there's been nowhere else in the game to indicate that you should just be mashing the action button on random sprites and on random tiles to just see if a thing happens. Like, it's bad conveyance. There's no way you would know that. And then there's this guy, Bagu, I guess, Bagu. So if you want to cross this river, you have to get a note from Bagu that tells the guy who controls the bridge that you are allowed to cross the river. And there's like, imagine like a grid of like forest tiles. So he's in like, let's say the middle one. And you can only get to his cabin if you enter it from the east. So you have to be westbound. One, no one tells you that you need to find him. Two, no one shows you, or the game doesn't show you visually that there's anything there. It looks exactly like every other forest tile. And three, there's no reason for you to think that the direction you enter a tile from matters. And you only get to his cabin if you enter it from the right. So just like the mirror, you don't know that you're supposed to be looking for this thing. The game does nothing to tell you that it's there, and it actively obscures you from finding it.
Yeah. No.
Why would you do any of those things? Why should I be so early in the game and have had so many times that the only way I could proceed was either to have thrown my entire life at figuring these things out or to look at a fucking walkthrough?
Yeah. No, I agree completely. The conveyance in this game is probably the worst that I've ever seen. It's bad. It's bad, dude. It's bad. Like the game goes out of its way to waste your time. What was it? I can't remember where exactly I got this from, but they said that it is very, very easy to beat a player. It's very difficult to get a player through your game, you know? So, I mean, it's really easy to make a game where you just can't beat it. I mean, that's easy. But to create a game that is interesting and challenging and get the player through it and still feel interested and challenged, that's incredibly hard to do. And this game falls flat in so many areas. And I really do think that it's just the density of bad ideas like is staggering. I mean, like, I really do think like this is a black hole of a bad game, and we both got spaghettified, and like we're light and good and warmth and happiness cannot escape it.
It really does just feel like none of these mechanics individually would be game ruining, but all of them together, like the amount of damage enemies do when they hit you, the
sloppy control, sloppy hitbox,
I didn't even mention that you have friggin' momentum, which I know is like a thing in the universe, but like it's kind of annoying in video games where like you're walking and you let go of the D-pad and you like take another step or two. And then like when you hit enemies, some of them like knock you back. And that matters because instead of fighting with a sword, like the real hero of time, you fight with a butter knife, which is only like 3.5 inches long. So getting knocked back a couple of inches really matters.
Yeah. So
I'm losing the thread here, my dude.
With that being said, did it hold up?
No. No, it doesn't hold up. And here's the thing is no amount of nostalgia goggles to me would make this experience hold up. This is firmly entrenched in, I want to play a game that everyone else hates, or I want to play a game that is punishingly difficult just to prove that I can, or I want to play a game that I'm going to spend 4 hours of my life swearing at really loudly so that people will laugh and donate money to cancer research. Like, I am unable to empathize with a person who is like, nah, dude, it's just a fun game. It's just a good casual time. Like, I just really enjoy Zelda II, Simon's Quest, The Saw. Like I can't imagine identifying with that person.
No, I think honestly, if somebody said like, "Oh man, no, I really like Zelda 2. It has a bunch of like nuance." I'm like, "You're the guy. You're like a drip that ruins parties. Like you're the guy who says like, no, man, Luigi's Mansion is really the best of all of the like no,
Mario is Missing is really the pinnacle of the Mario franchise.
Just loves that. I mean, like Luigi is really the underrated Mario brother. I mean, like that kind of person, but no, there's I can think of one reason to recommend this game, honestly, is and it again harkens back to the only redeeming feature quality of it, which is if somebody was looking to get into game development, I would recommend that they play this game just for an exemplar of look at how frustrating all of these things are, and look at how bad mechanics, or let me rephrase, specific mechanics can impact dramatically other mechanics, like, so if you take thing A and thing B alone, like you said, those are fine. But if you pair them together, it's bad. If you pair it with thing C, it's 10 times worse. And then with thing D, it's 1,000 times worse, Like it just, each one compounds the other, it's just an Ouroboros of hate, So yeah, that being said though, the only reason I could think of somebody looking back fondly on playing this game would be because it was like the first time they did cocaine. And like, thought we were going to get through without a cocaine reference.
I really, man, what people must think of us. So here is, this will be Jerry Springer style. I'm going to turn to the camera and put my, cross my legs and put my note cards against my knee. And here's my final thought. This is literally a line of dialogue that someone in the first town, it's like the second person I ever spoke to in the game, says to you. And this is exactly how I feel about this game. And I'm quoting verbatim here. If all else fails, use fire.
The curtain falls. The music plays. The credits roll. Then it all fades to black. And you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone. There's no player 2 there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creep in with the edge of a smile.